Hey everyone, welcome to the Lake Michigan Angler Podcast. I'm Rob and this is Michael, and today we're here with my buddy Phil Scorpad.
What's up, Phil? Welcome back.
How you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
You've made it to year 3 of the podcast as a guest. I think last year we had you on. Do you remember what we talked about? Because I don't.
Just salmon.
Just general.
Efficiency.
Oh, yeah.
Efficiency.
Yeah.
The year in
That
review.
was a good episode, actually, despite me forgetting.
Just salmon,
Just salmon stuff. Today, a little bit different. We're deviating away from the salmon to talk about probably one of the most prized fish in the entire lake that is, well, people can be very tight-lipped about. They're not always easy to access, and they taste delicious. And we're talking about
Perch.
Phil's going to spill the beans today.
all the juice
I
coming off.
had to sign a disclaimer before I came here to not divulge too much information. So
Yeah. Those perch fishermen do not play around. There's a lot to talk about with perch fishing. I guess starting from the very beginning of it all, let's just talk about the state of the perch fishery. You've been out there pretty hardcore this entire winter time, fishing for them and stuff. You'll send in the group chat, your limit every other time, and I'm just sitting there drooling. Haven't made it out, but for perch anyway. But how would you say in the last 2 or 3 years, and this year included, how the perch fishery looks and how it's been fishing?
yeah, so I think it's been really good. I mean, for numbers of perch, it's been really good. This year, it seems like the size is down. I was just telling Rob earlier, it seems like there's a lot more small fish around that you're catching, but there's still some quality 10-plus inch fish. Last year, when you'd go in the morning, you'd see, plumes and plumes of these little 1 and 2 inch perch. And I was asking how big he thought those would be this year, and he said probably 4 or 5 inches. And that's what we're catching a lot of right now. But I don't see those real small perch early in the morning. So who knows? It could be cyclical. They could be somewhere else. Who knows? But overall, there's been a lot of perch caught this year.
Yeah, I've been seeing them, even though I haven't been fishing, but I've seen pictures circulating on Facebook and stuff like that. I think I would add on to that too, that the last couple of years have been pretty good for the perch fishing. I mean, it seems like there's perhaps, and I don't have any data, of course, to back this, but it just, from observing, it seems like it's been an upswing in the perch fishery, wintertime, especially in this winter period. We talk about November through what would you say? March time frame. Yeah, it seems like the last couple of years have been pretty good, man. Like guys have been really doing well in all the usual shore spots and stuff. From down to Indiana all through Chicago and stuff. It gets a little bit different up here. We'll talk about that from its heyday, but they've been good looking size perch, man. Some really good jumbos, numbers like you said. And, the thing about the perch fishery, unlike the salmon fishery, which is, regulated, they're actively doing the, numbers on it, the data, the stockings. So they have models but there's no model for these perch. It's kind of like, whatever happens naturally is what we got.
Yep.
And yeah, they'll every, I don't know, maybe 10 years, they'll change something up, a regulation, a limit, the season.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yep.
But it's pretty much just
what you got. What you got is what you got.
Yep.
Which I think is a big reason why, when it comes to perch fishing, one thing Rob and I, a lot of feedback we get from newer salmon anglers when they come into this is, man, the salmon community is so welcoming. They're so open with information. Go perch fishing. See how that works out. It's not quite the same.
And it's not just perch. It's other types of fish too. But like with salmon, it's a big lake, and you don't have to be like on the spot. You can sometimes it's better just to get away from everybody.
Yeah.
And it's not always like that with other fish. You're sometimes fishing much smaller areas, and there's a lot more people trying to get in that smaller area, and I think get wiped out a little quicker.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, if you go perch fishing and you talk to people that are perch fishing there, everyone's super open with information and everything. It's because the spots are so limited and because the spots are so small that if you just broadcast it to everybody, then yeah, your spot gets nailed and you don't have a spot to go fish. That's the biggest thing.
Well, I was gonna wait to bring this up, but since you kind of set it up for the perfectly to talk about it, but the rise of Facebook perch groups, Chicago Perch Group, Lake Michigan Perch Group, in the last, I don't know, 3-4 years, it really seemed to explode on Facebook. Those groups have thousands of anglers in it, and folks are sharing, their catches and all that stuff. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but at the same time, you can clearly see in these groups there's a lot of resentment as well. So, what's your take on how these Facebook, let's just keep it more broadly, social media groups have impacted or are impacting the perch fishing? Have you noticed a difference? Are there more people now in the spots than before, or anything like that?
Yeah, on nice days when people are catching perch, there are several hundred people in some of these community spots. I don't think it affects the perch fishing, to be honest with you. I mean, there's plenty to go around. Draws people in from farther away. So I personally don't really mind. I mean, it's there for everybody to enjoy. I just worry about access, and we could probably talk about that later. But, they're doing some construction over at one, and one's private property technically, and there's word that they might be developing that location too. So that's really the biggest thing. But as far as drawing people out, I think it's great. There were several hundred people on a really nice day when the perch were biting.
Yeah,
everyone was behaving themselves and getting along and catching perch, so it was fine with me.
That is a beautiful thing. As you're saying that, I want to bring up my calculator here, because let me play devil's advocate.
Okay,
we're doing it for the conversation here, folks. All right, several hundred. I've seen pictures of 87th Street lined shoulder to shoulder.
There are literally 200 people there.
Okay, let's just 200 people. Now in Illinois, daily limit is 15. Mm-hmm. Now this is an extreme case because I'm sure not everyone's getting a limit.
They were.
Okay.
Like when it's really good, they are.
And
not like that every day.
And I'm not saying they're catching 15 like very big fish, but they caught or can keep 15 of the fish they caught.
Sure. Now, I ran the numbers. All right. 200 people at 15 fish each for their daily limit. That's 3,000 perch gone in one day.
Yeah.
Imagine this consecutively. This begs the question, does this pose a major risk? I mean, because DNR doesn't, to my knowledge, doesn't have the data sets that they're doing for the salmon to have an idea of like where the numbers could be so they can adjust. If we are relying on perch to just naturally reproduce and they're on their own, we're not stocking anything, is it sustainable with the increase of people that are driven to these areas? And again, I agree, everyone has a right. If you're paying your fishing fees and licenses, 100%. But as word has gotten out, that's a crazy number of fish.
It is when you put it like that. But I mean, perch are prolific. They are a problem in a lot of lakes.
It's not like it's really new. Like, there's some more people doing it now, but they've been doing it for years. It's always been a busy place, right? Mm-hmm. And it's withheld. The fishery is stood pretty strong.
Yeah, just
down
perch
there.
fishing in general on Lake Michigan has always been a popular thing. But like I said, I mean, they're prolific and they're stunted in a lot of lakes. Maybe not around here so much, but I know out west in some of those lakes in Washington and things like that, they're a problem. There's a ton of them.
It is interesting. Out west, they consider them like pest fish and stuff.
Yeah.
Like walleye, too. Over here, walleye are like treasured. Mm-hmm. Over there, they're like, no limits, just take as many as you want.
Please get them out of the lake.
Yeah, they want to get them out of the lakes. It is interesting in that area how different regions view these fish. But as we talked about perch, though, I mean, just me running that number, 3,000 fish swiped at a crack. I mean, listen, I often wonder to myself, too, on a beautiful Saturday when folks are out salmon fishing, I wonder what that number looks like. Because I'm sure it's a ton of fish that are yoinked out between charters and recreational guys.
Thousands every day.
Yeah, I mean, you think about, those moros getting beat up. I mean, when they start south, what about all those guys that are starting real early in the year, whacking them 30, 30, 30, 30, 30. Ask Caleb how many fish he killed last year. That's one guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no. And so when you say these numbers out loud, it really is like, whoa, like that's kind of insane.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
But we forget about, like, we don't, because there's a lot of fish we don't see. So you've got like 2 main spots down there.
Yeah.
But it's not like all the perch are just in those spots. There's
No.
all sorts of areas that are not getting fished, and they could even have more perch.
That is a very interesting.
Like, there's basically, especially in the cold weather months, they're like sanctuaries. No one's finding these perch in all these different areas. There's no access to them. You can't get to them from shore.
Right.
No one's trying to find them in a boat.
That whole Calumet River system has perch all the way from the mouth,
all the way to the lake.
well, to the lake and up to Lake Calumet.
No, that's what I meant. Lake Calumet.
Yeah.
'Cause I
Miles.
Yeah,
Miles.
I had a guy come in there, and he right up to the mouth of the Lake Calumet, which the Calumet feeds into it. And he said they were whacking perch and big white bass.
Yep.
Up there.
Yep.
Which I've always been curious about that lake. I've always seen it. I'm really curious about that
They
lake.
get crappies there in the summer, bass. They have like bass tournaments on that lake.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah.
I don't know where they go.
It's such a quiet as kept kind of a fishery over there.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious about that. Some of you guys that fish out there, let us know down below. 'Cause we want to hear about it. But yeah, you get the Calumet River, and that definitely feeds. Rob made a good point though. Right. I mean, listen, there's no secret here. A lot of the shore fishing that's happening for perch is happening Navy Pier in Chicago. It's happening down the Calumet River, down in the slips, 87th Street and such. And then you do have some Indiana's fishing for them. They are either going to be out in front of Portage by the, Gary Lighthouse. You got the warm water discharge. And then
they get them in the harbors there in Indiana
they'll get 'em in
too,
the
and
harbors.
all the harbors in Chicago.
all the harbors in Chicago get them too. Yeah, it's just a matter of like, it's a numbers game, for sure. Because I grew up fishing Belmont Harbor. That was always my go-to. Right at the mouth of the harbor, assuming everything's kind of still the same, but you got all the boulders there, and then there's like a weed bed out in the middle. And I would just run little shad raps, man. I would just yoink them.
We used to fish Wilmette Harbor when we were kids. But yeah, you can get them all up and down the lake. It's just a matter of where they congregate, right? You want to fish for the numbers and
there's a number and the size, because they do like somewhat like we talked about in the previous episodes and conversations, like salmon, they will kind of group together in size.
I agree.
So yes, a lot of harbors will have like resident perch, but are they like 6 inches?
The keeper size.
Something you can actually make a meal of. Now, if you want to fish from, you take a kid out. If you want to take your kid out, then you can have fun all day just catching and throwing them back and stuff like that. But we're talking about like getting something you can actually fry up and stuff. You need at least like 9-inch or so.
I think anything really it depends on the day too, right? I mean, if you're getting bigger ones, maybe you set 9 inches as your barometer, but usually anything over 8 you can keep. There's people that keep smaller ones. I think those smaller ones taste better anyways, but yeah, from 8 to 12 inches is pretty much what you get over there.
That's a sweet spot. Yeah. So going back, like I said, Rob made that point that there are, and we talk about this quite a bit. I've talked about it quite a bit, outside the scope of just our general conversations, that I'm of the belief that there are places out there that these perch are sitting at that no one has ventured to put in the time to figure out. Most guys put their boats away right now, and the few that do have their boats out want to go out and just want to catch something and not necessarily go out and do reconnaissance missions, which, I think that for the folks that actually put in that time, man, I think they can hit a gold mine, because I found a video back on YouTube. I found a video on YouTube from back like 13 years ago. I don't remember who it was, but they were fishing out of North Point in 40 feet of water just south of the harbor.
Yep.
Because I looked, of course, we're looking at the background like, okay, that's North Point. There's the harbor mouth. Okay, he looks a little south. He said he was in 40 feet of water. Okay, cool, right? And they were just dropping and yoinking up jumbos. And we're at a point now where that's not the same experience, right? How long ago did that Waukegan, this area?
It's been 16 years.
Since it kind of fell off?
Yeah. It's the last year that there was still fish was the first year we opened a store. And then after that, they were pretty much gone.
So, to your best assumption, like what was the change? What might have happened there? Overfished?
I think there's numerous things. I don't think it can ever be just one thing. It was hit hard. I mean, that was a big deal. If you went out, I mean, it was every spring, April, early May. You'd go out, south of North Point, Waukegan area. You'd see if it was a nice, calm day and the fish were biting, there'd be over 100 boats out there. It was just, gunnel to gunnel.
Loaded.
Right? Yeah. And charters were fishing for them too. There were a lot of fish killed. There were a lot of fish taken out, and you're fishing at least 40 usually. And anything thrown back died, so they're throwing back the little ones. So really, if they're keeping their 15, they might have been killing 30. To do that. That definitely had an impact. But there were other things too. That area that they were fishing was rock piles that they were spawning on. Those areas seem to be silted in now. So we really haven't had people fishing out there for 15 years. If it was just an overfishing thing, I think that we would have seen more of a population rebound in this time. There's been quite a bit of time for that to happen. And I know people that have gone out there and they have caught some fish, but it's nothing like what it was. It's a lot of work trying to catch them. So it's more than just the overfishing that did it. It was overfishing. It was the change of the environment. A lot of those rocks just are buried, so they don't have that spawning ground. And you've got gobies and stuff eating perch eggs, and mussels took over certain areas, and all those things it was like, because that area was the main spawning grounds for like all the perch in this part of the lake, away from the city, north of the city, but like southern Wisconsin, northeast Illinois, they would all go to that area, it seemed to spawn. It was really, really good fishery for a while there. But yeah, it's just not there anymore. Something changed. And that whole stretch of shoreline from like Waukegan to Racine, Milwaukee just isn't the same now.
It's funny you mentioned that. Milwaukee's had a stellar winter so far for perch.
Yeah, pretty good.
They really
and
popped
we
off.
see like every couple of years, all of a sudden, like some fish show up and get caught. But it's a little bit different. You're not seeing them out there like we did. Right. Yeah, I think you see some more resident fish that are staying in the harbors start getting caught. And yeah, you get like a little better of a year, but it just has not rebounded to what it was in our area here. But there's still a perch. Like guys can go out in a good day, especially during the summer. You'll see some perch, and then like now you'll see some perch. Like they are, like I have caught them through the ice fall fishing for browns and stuff. Just not any real numbers of them.
Right. Yeah. I think what we've seen up in Milwaukee with their perch run this year up there being really strong. Maybe that's a marker for what's to come. If these fish are starting to come in there, something maybe he's drawing them back in there, that maybe it starts to build year over year again, and like you said, I don't think enough folks are putting enough time out here to search for them and see if they're still around 40 feet of water in this time of the year. I do know that last year? Yeah, last year they installed all these underwater break walls along the shoreline south of North Point and such. It stretches all the way down to Waukegan almost. And that's an area that I find very interesting. Obviously, it's going to bring fish to it, right? Smallies, drum, whatever things. But I was very curious, like, I wonder if perch will come back into that with all that rock structure there and will, be in the area. So I think, in these coming years, it would behoove people to get out there and what I look at it is like spring comes around for the coho, go get your limit of coho, and then bring before you leave the dock, stop by the shop, grab some minnows, and then go searching out spend the rest of a couple hours, because you're gonna get a fast limit anyway.
Yeah.
I want to go home after an hour. Like I still want to kind of fish.
Half
right?
hour.
Yeah, half hour.
Right.
That's the bad side of like when the fish is really good. You're like, we're done already? I don't want to go in. I'm having fun, But it gives you an excuse to go out there and like, all right, let's putz around for another 2 hours and just drop minnows down and let's see what's around here and potentially hit it big. Of course, when that happens, I'm sure guys are gonna be pretty tight-lipped, but
Oh yeah, I mean we used to just get them right outside the break wall of North Point here, like right there. You'd see boats out there fishing right along it. I think that was more of a summer bite, but There's
when they
still
come
some
in
around.
for the
Yeah.
spawn. Yeah, you will find them when they do that spawning, they will slide back into harbors and you can usually pop them there. The only thing is, they're out of season, so you got to dump them back in, or you can't even technically fish for them, or you just have to release them.
I think you
remember.
could fish for them,
Just
but
can't
you
keep
just
'em.
have to release them. Yeah.
Yeah. And if we're wrong about that, well then, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I think you could.
We're gonna get hit up in the comments. So it's a really interesting kind of dynamic with the perch. Obviously areas where we have like river systems feeding into the lake tend to do well. Like you see them in St. Joe's, they do fairly well. The guys out, I've seen reports from those guys out there in the
Chicago
boats.
River too has perch that go into it from the lake.
Chicago River, oh man, we could literally dedicate an episode to Chicago River. I think Chicago River is such a slept-on fishery.
They got everything.
Downtown, everything is in there.
Everything.
I've been on there in my kayak and like scanned it. It is incredible the amounts of fish that are in that river, and people don't even know it. What's cool about it is that there's been a growing carp angling community that sits down there. I've seen that. That's really cool because they've adopted like the European style of fishing for them and stuff. So it's kind of cool.
They got big crappies, they got perch, they got bass,
big bluegills,
stripers, bluegills,
largemouth,
everything.
There's walleye in there.
Yep.
There's big white bass right off Wolf Point, man. Just grab you a little crawfish looking crankbait and just chuck it along the rocks. Oh, they hit so hard, man. I was yoinking them. And just at every bridge along that, you've got those cutaways in the corners. They just congregate in there. And I've seen them stacked. You got caught catfish out of there.
Yeah, that's where you get the perch too in the wintertime, right along the river walk. So, I mean, yeah, to your point, any river system, I mean, those are fish magnets, right? The food's a conveyor belt down there. So they just show up where they show up. And if there's food, then they stay until they have to move because of weather or water conditions.
Yeah. There's a ton of fish in the Chicago River, which I kind of miss fishing. It's obviously like such a very scenic experience there. I'm over there paddling by the winery and stuff. A lot of good views.
Didn't I see you from a company boat outing? Didn't I see you out there?
You might have been. I mean, I don't know if any of their kayak anglers have fished that river.
I remember somebody saying, "Hey, Phil, you kayak fish. Do you know those guys in the kayak?" And I was like, "Let me see." "Hey, Mike, what's up?" And you like yelled back. You're like, "Phil, what's up?" They're like, "You actually knew that guy?" And I was like, "I did.
What are the odds?
I did."
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I kind of miss it. The only thing is such a hassle to get down there sometimes. Get through all the traffic and park and all that. But
You could rent a hot tub down there nowadays.
really?
Yeah. They got a company that has like a motorized hot tub. You can just do that in a hot tub. You don't even
way
have
to
to
catch
worry
perch,
about
yeah.
you don't even have to worry about the cold.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
You could sit in your bathing suit.
It make for a good YouTube
Let the
video.
Yeah.
goobers swim around with you.
Yeah. Just throw them in the
And then boiling
pool.
in the water with
Yeah. There you go.
It's like a live catch and cook, literally, just in the water with me. No. Oh, man. That being said, they're a lot of fun. When you find them, man, I don't know about you guys, but I get so excited, like, oh, there's perch here,
Yeah.
And usually because when you catch one, there's more. They're usually congregated to some level of groups, Hopefully you hit the mother load and there's a ton of them. But now is a great time to get out there. They're so accessible from shore. Let's talk about setups here, Phil. What do you run in? What would you recommend for folks that want to get into this kind of fishing to be running in terms of tackle?
Sure. So it's really easy. I mean, you could pretty much get them on anything. People get them on live bait setups, minnows, night crawlers, shrimp, squid, waxy spikes. I mean, you can literally catch them on anything. I personally really like to use plastics because some of the times you go out, it's cold. I don't want to dip my hand in a minnow bucket. I don't want to keep baiting stuff up. So I like the plastics because you can catch a bunch of fish in a row on it, and you can cast really far, not worry about minnows flying off. I don't have to take my gloves off. So I really like the plastics.
Yeah. Rod and reel line?
Yeah, so I like a rod that Rob has at the shop here, a 7-foot light action, fast tip. And then braided line, I feel like for my presentation is very, very important because if you have a lot of line out and you have monofilament, it's like a giant rubber band. You try to set the hook and you don't get a hook set or you can't feel the bite. So braided line, nanofill, fire line, something like that to add the sensitivity, I feel like is really important.
What pound test?
6, just light.
Yeah.
Yeah, something you can cast far.
And real size?
Real size, 2,000, 3,000 series. Anything like that will work. And then in terms of weight, I usually use about a 1/2 ounce to 3/4 for windier days, things like that. So you can let your weight hit the bottom and you can tighten it up and see a bite. They bite so light. So if you're not holding that rod in your hand, you're probably going to be missing a lot of fish. Like I find sometimes I'll put one rod straight down on the bottom and just look at the tip. And when I'm doing that, I'm trying to grab that bite and I miss that bite and then I miss the bite that I have the rod in my hand on. So just having one rod and having it in your hand, I think is really important too.
Yeah, I've seen videos underwater videos of like perch like through the ice and stuff like that, and you'll see how they just kind of mouth stuff a lot of times, and I think that's probably what some of that is. They kind of mouth it when they don't get the hook part yet, and they're just kind of like, do I want this really? You know,
it's amazing. I was telling Rob, I mean, you're just waiting for a tick on your rod tip, and if you miss, like you have to set the hook instantly, or else it's gone. It's not like a tick and then a take. You got to set the hook right away. I don't get it how they could suck it in and spit it out in the same motion.
I'm telling you, it's like they
are tough though.
I just want a little taste of it.
Yeah,
spit it back out. I know you got some plastic. Let's want to hold up and talk about some of the plastics.
Yeah.
That you got
So really any like 2-3 inch plastic bait or even smaller will work. Kitex, these 2-inch easy shiners are some of my favorite. I think that the action that you get from the tail is so subtle, and I mean, you really don't even have to move it. I think the current and wind playing on your rod tip will move it enough that they'll just bite it.
And you're drop shotting these.
Yes, I'm drop shotting them. So I'll put the weight on the bottom and then...
How far up do you have the hook?
Usually about a foot for the first hook and then another foot. Some people just use one hook. I like to use 2 and put 2 different colors on and see which one they like, or if they're a little bit farther off the bottom.
Are the hooks straight on the main line, or are you running a dropper?
I put the hooks on the main line for drop shotting, but if I were to be live bait fishing and making my own rig, I would put a loop or drop on it and have it sit out a little bit. But, you know, these work really well. The Bobby Garlands work really well. These are a little bit stickier, and I think they're a little bit more durable than these. These seem to get eaten up pretty quick.
Yeah, those Kitex are very supple, so it doesn't take much for them to get ripped up.
Yeah. And then these Z-Men baby ballers are also really good. I mean, they are, you can't even break these things. You could stretch them this far. And yeah, they have a really good action.
I don't even
too.
know. Listen, I'll tell you what. I don't know how Z-Man has a business because it's indestructible. You can buy this pack, and I would have to buy a pack for another 2 years, probably, if I really wanted to. So I'm really curious on their business model. How, you know, because let's be honest, if you're a lure maker, you kind of want to have your lure break at some point so people buy it again.
Yeah.
Right. But you want to find that sweet spot of like, how long should this lure I make last? Because you don't want them to be like, oh, your lures are cheap. But I mean, the TRDs are gold mines for smallies. I mean, some of mine are so caught so many fish and look perfectly fine. You know, it's really incredible. But I do like the Z-Man stuff for
Just
sure.
don't put them in with other plastics. They melt everything.
Yeah, they will melt.
So you got to keep it in their own package.
Lord knows what kind of chemicals.
Yeah, right. Don't put your fingers in your mouth.
Yeah, and then you
I just
pack
have
of weights. Yeah.
Yeah. So I found. So last year was the first year that I started using the tungsten weights a little bit more than just the regular bell sinkers. I think that in one of the spots that we were fishing, you had to cast out pretty far to get into the weed beds. And that's where the bigger perch were holding. So using a, what do they call it? Skinny one? Pencil.
Yeah.
1/2 ounce, tie it directly onto the bottom, and you could cast so far using like a 4 or 6 pound braided line.
Yeah.
On a light setup, oh my God, you can launch the thing across the slip or across wherever you're fishing. So, yeah, just tying one of these onto the bottom. Like I said, 1/2 ounce is kind of the go-to, 3/4 when it gets a little windier, so you can see that stuff. And then you're one hook a foot above that, and another one a foot above that.
You know, so far I went out. I made it out twice to go perch/laker fishing this winter period, right? And in terms of perch, both times have been a complete miss. Went up there to the north side of Navy Pier, and you know we've got the live out. I was on the boat for both of those, and got the live out looking around, and you know wasn't seeing much of anything there. And I on one drop I caught a big bluegill jigging, and I'm like, okay, this is not the species I'm looking for. Big bluegill. But I mention that because you know these fish will move around, and you know in terms of timing, in what I know, some folks will wait to hear a report, but I think for sure, much like the salmon, if you get a report today, tomorrow can be completely different, or 2 days from now when you're able to go out, that report is now null and void. That's
true.
It's over. So, you know, how do you think about going out and timing it all when you're trying to do some perch fishing in hopes to maximize and get out some fish?
Yeah, I mean, usually this year was a little different because it was so warm, so late. But usually the beginning of November, you can start getting perch from shore. So when that water temp dips into the high 40s and starts going down is really when to start targeting them. And yeah, you just have to go. I mean, I've gone on super cold days, windy days, whatever the case may be, because you never know when that bite's going to be really good. And to your point, it is different every day. Like I can go get a limit of really nice ones one day and then call a couple buddies and say, dude, I nailed them, let's go. And then the next day sucks and nothing changed.
That's usually how it goes, though. Like one day's great, and next day I'm going back out. I'm gonna go kill them again. I'm gonna run the same, plastic. I'm gonna go on the same marker on the pier. And it's dead.
Yep.
They're like, where'd they go?
They move.
When I was out there last time, a couple weeks ago, one thing I noticed though was the water was kind of a little bit stirred up, and when you kind of get that silty look, it looked like. Like when the sand from the bottom comes up and it makes that water look. So like visibility is maybe like 2 or 3 foot before you couldn't really see stuff. And I think that definitely impacted the perch weren't in that area. And I think the watercolor probably maybe made them move around.
I think that's the single most important thing is your water clarity for those perch. I mean, if you've got dirty water, you don't have perch, so you got to go somewhere else.
I think perch are very bougie when it comes to the clarity. They wanted the water to be like settled and clear. For whatever reason, and that was the one thing I noticed on that trip was like they're not here. Then I looked, and the water was just off a little bit. I'm like,
and you'll know if they're there or not. I mean,
it is pretty.
If
quick.
they are there, they are there, and you will know. You will get bites right away. Yeah. If they are not there, they are not there. You see one alive
too, but we just weren't seeing any movement along the bottom. Wasn't seeing much of anything. It was very interesting. So we spent like 20 minutes. We're like, all right, let's just go laker fishing. And of course, the laker cooperated. So
they usually do.
Yeah. And while you're perch fishing, you can always get into some lake trout too. It's not uncommon as well. Guys are like, rods are bent over and light tackle, and you've got a 6 to 12 pound laker on there. It's a lot of fun.
And they usually don't have a net, and they're tying buckets up to ropes.
Have you seen the recent videos of guys climbing on the ladders? Which I'm like, dude, you know how seriously
it's like that every year. Every year.
Oh my God, guys!
They're tying a treble hook onto a different rod or line or something, and trying to
snag them in.
Get it in the tail and pull it up. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I saw a couple of videos on Facebook and the perch groups of guys climbing down the safety ladders, to near the water to go grab the fish and pull it up. I'm like, oh man, that water's frigid, man.
It's scary. That's the one thing. If you're gonna bring kids, make sure you got life jackets on them, and they're standing close enough back from the edge because it's a 8-foot, 10-foot drop, no matter where you're fishing on the lakefront. So, and that water is cold.
Oh, bone cold. Bone cold. If there's any good thing about it, those is they're so crowded that you can get help pretty quick. And, that's in that situation.
I still don't want to walk to my car with 50 pounds of water freezing.
You are going to be a walking popsicle.
If you make it that far, yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of these areas. I think it's interesting. There's a lot of changes happening to both of the primary spots in Illinois. Talking about Navy Pier, we're talking about down in the slips, 87th and such like that. Starting with 87th, I mean, it's been forever. It's been a private property technically. I don't even know who owned it at that point, but I did hear. I don't know if this is for sure, but I think there's new ownership. Some might have been sold, and there may be some new potential development happening there. Like you mentioned it as well.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's been sold yet. I think it's just, it could be not happening for all I know. I mean, they've bought and sold that place lots of times, but that's kind of been the spot to go to this year. There's tons of access. You could park right on Lake Shore Drive or South Shore Drive, whatever it is, and walk right in. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think that was a big concern going into this year, which was, were they going to really uphold the private property thing and keep people off? At some points they do that. They will have security come clear people out, and then other times they don't care. It's so wishy-washy in that regard.
Yeah, it seemed like a few years ago, pre-COVID, they were a little bit stricter on that, and then COVID came, there was no one, and then post-COVID, doesn't really seem like security's over there.
Yeah, so it's allowing guys to get out there and do their fishing and such. However, that spot, by all accounts, can go away tomorrow.
It could.
So it makes things interesting in that perspective of what happens when they pull the trigger on that, because they will, I'm sure, at some point, if they're going to develop on it, they're going to have to shut it down and not make it accessible. What's going to happen there? And especially because when you look at what's happening in Navy Pier currently on the north side, they're building out a whole dock. They're going to make it dockable, and so like boats can pull in there in the summertime to access it, which is not a bad idea, honestly. It allows because on the south side you've got all the cruise ships and stuff, right? North side is going to be more of like just, I guess any boat can just pull up in the slips.
Oh, it's going to be a marina.
Actual marina.
Yeah,
an actual marina.
You rent the slip.
Oh,
your
wow.
boat sits there.
Yeah. So the one good thing about that, though, is they made it clear, because there was a lot of bitching and complaining once the word got out. I think Bowman mentioned in the Sun Times that development was happening, and of course, guys spoke up very quickly about this. They did say that they're going to make it accessible for anglers in the winter period because it's not being used, and that makes sense, right? Like, why cut them off if there's no boats in the harbor? There's no threat
see.
to that. Can always say, okay. Let's play Doomsday, right? Let's say 87 shuts down. They're going to develop it. Let's say Navy Pier, no more access because they have a marina now. Where does the shore perch fisherman go?
So
Boat dealer.
Huh?
To the boat dealer.
The boat dealer.
To the boat dealer. Start selling boats. No, I mean, there's, like I said, all those Chicago harbors have fish, and the Indiana harbors. They sell pier passes that you can go fish the docks over there. I just don't know what Navy Pier is going to hold. I mean, it's going to be part of the park district, so I'd imagine they'd give us access. But, the key is that we continue to clean up after ourselves and make sure that we're keeping those locations in very good condition so that we're welcome as fishermen. We're welcome. Take in or bring out what you take in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, which is not hard to do yet. Sometimes people definitely don't do that, and it doesn't impact everyone else.
It does.
I've been watching the construction there, and I got now that I've fished there a couple of times, and they're starting on the far end of it. So they're already building it out. They're putting in the pilings there so it's kind of cool watching them develop it and all that stuff. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I do think that's probably just with them putting in that stuff is probably going to add more structure. It's going to attract more fish in the area, but hopefully
that's like a giant fish attracting spot. That's been my go-to spot for many, many years. I started fishing there maybe 15 years ago because I lived downtown, and this year it's been a little off. But yeah, that would be a big blow if you weren't able to access that spot anymore. Yeah,
those. I mean, listen, those two spots are the most posted spots in those groups and stuff like that. So, not having access to that, it's going to be very interesting how that plays into everything. But like you said, there are perch in harbors. It may make people have to scatter about and all that. And
yeah, maybe they'll find some more perch spots.
Maybe for sure. maybe maybe then folks will try and do some more off, on the water reconning and finding if there's,
Sure.
More somewhere else, perhaps,
Sure.
Outside of the wintertime, though, is there another period of time that they're accessible at? I'm trying to think, like
Accessible there, or are you saying from shore?
Yeah, like from a shore or near shore.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could have good perch fishing depending on the winds all the time. So it's all wind related, I think, as you get into the open season, which is June 15th, if I'm not mistaken. Usually those first couple weeks or the last 2 weeks of June and maybe the first week of July is pretty consistent everywhere you go for perch. And then they seem to scatter a little bit. And it seems like the Indiana, Michigan guys get the bulk of them. But usually we're salmon fishing in the summer. But in years past, I mean, we used to go to Wilmette Harbor as kids and get our limit of perch often, just fishing in the harbor, minnows, crayfish, jigs, castmasters, kind of everything. So there are perch, just I don't know how many people are actually fishing for them.
Yeah, no, I think that's the case too as well. One thing I wanted to bring up here, which I find interesting, is Illinois, Indiana, you have 15 perch limit. Why is Wisconsin so stingy with perch? Why are you limited to 5?
It's hard enough to catch those 5 a lot of times. I'd say most of the time it's not easy to catch 5. When it's on, when all of a sudden a bunch show up, you get the 5 real easy. But most of the time it's a struggle just to catch 5.
Okay, so I think that kind of fuels my point though, is if they're not that readily around, why 5 still? Because then why not have 15 like the other states? So what is it about Wisconsin that they pulled that back? Is there any?
Oh, they're just trying to get that population to rebound. So if you have a higher limit, then less chance of it rebounding.
If you get 5 14-inch perch, that's a lot of perch. That's probably over 2 pounds of fillets. So, yeah, it all depends on that too. But Green Bay, however, is 15, right?
15 in Green Bay.
Okay.
There's some monster.
There's some big perch up there.
I've seen some pictures from Howie's. 2-pounders lately this week.
Really?
Yeah.
Over 2 pounds. Yeah. Monsters.
Jeez.
Go to Green Bay.
Yeah. Stay away from Chicago. Leave Phil spots alone.
Yeah. I might go to Green Bay. I mean, I saw some pictures of some perch. Man, I literally said to somebody last night, I was like, looks like I need to move to Green Bay.
I have yet to go to Green Bay. Can we just set up a trip and go to Green Bay?
What do you want to fish for? They have everything.
Listen, I do a little walleye, a little perch. I'm cool with walleye and perch because I can do smallmouth here.
But you got to bear the cold, man. Yeah, that's when they're around.
I'll do it. I'll do it if it's like a trip. Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it.
I think they're around in the summertime too, but I think you get the monsters now.
Are they ice fishing it right now?
Yeah.
It's all frozen up, right?
Yeah, they fish, I think, the bays more for the perch. So they're just in those bays. They use those bite me boxes. They just put a minnow on a split shot, let it swim around until you see the bite me box go up. Yeah, they're getting huge ones. I mean, they get perch up to 16 inches out there.
That reminds me of this guy. I don't think it was you who told me this. No, it was somebody else I was talking to. He said one of his little, oh God, I don't know if I should say this. Well, he said one of his little tricks for perch is taking the floating Rapala and you put on a egg sinker, whatever weight, whatever depth you're fishing, whatever weight, and you tie that to a little swivel, and then you have your leader, maybe like 12, 15 inches to the Rapala, cast it out, let it drop to the bottom, and so you're keeping the because the floating Rapala wants to float up, right? But you're keeping it up, so it's floating up off the bottom, 18 inches or so, 15 inches or so, and then you just kind of twitch it, and then you'll let it slacken, so it'll slide back up, and then you'll jerk it back down, and it'll slide back to the sinker. He said he whacks them.
Yeah, I don't think that's a huge secret. That's how you fish the shad wraps
for decades. Yeah, especially during the summer.
Yeah, that's exactly what you do. You just put one of those rubber core weights or an egg sinker, stops by a swivel, 2 feet of fluorocarbon leader, put your number 5 flicker shad or number 5 shad wrap, cast it out, let it sink to the bottom, and then just twitch it in. That bait's going to want to float up, so it's not going to just be dragging on the bottom, but you're going to be down 20, 25 feet where those fish are,
Right.
and you'll stay in the strike zone. Yeah, you get some big fish that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's something I never heard. And he's like, oh, man, we go down. He showed me pictures. Like, okay.
Yeah, you don't hear about it quite as much
No, that's
as
what I'm
like when
saying.
we were kids. That was
Yeah,
you
that's
heard
what
about,
you
we
do.
didn't really
So-
like when we were fishing Wilmette. We didn't do it a whole lot, but like in Chicago, that was a main rig. That was a staple.
Sometimes I think these techniques get forgotten about because like I never fished that before. When I heard it, I thought that was interesting, and I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, you could probably do that over the wintertime too, like where I'm fishing. You could probably do that, but I think
You should try and let us know how it works.
I will. There's just not as many big fish around. Maybe that'll bring out the big fish, and those will be the ones that strike. Who knows? But also, just getting a whole bunch of them and getting bites is keeping my hands warm, moving. You know what I mean? So,
You gotta let us know. I thought that was pretty cool. Anything on Perch that we haven't covered? I mean,
no, I mean when we were talking about doing the show and what we talk about, it's just I think being mobile is very, very important to be able to stay on the better fish, because all of a sudden you'll notice that maybe the last 5 fish that you caught were small. It might be time to move a little bit. And I'm not talking like move on to the other side of town. I'm just talking move 100 feet this way, 100 yards this way, and just kind of like experiment with things. Could make it a lot more successful. And then you'll know if there's fish there. You'll start getting bit right away. And yeah, to your point, there's usually not just one. So they travel in these massive,
like
massive schools.
Yeah.
And they like to stay around like-sized fish. So, get out there while the perching's good.
Yeah, and it is doing well. It is doing well. It's really cool to see another year of some numbers. I haven't seen a ton of jumbos, but they've been catching some good size.
There haven't been like a ton of jumbos. I find that the big ones really come in a little bit later in the year, like February and March, until they start sliding out again. But you can get some real numbers. And right now they're actually breaking through the ice to fish for them too. So that's the other thing I like about Lake Michigan, is that you can go anytime and I can get through the ice, and I don't have to be on the ice to fish them through the ice. But yeah, it could be some of the best days that you have out there, just fishing straight down, breaking through the ice with a weight of some kind tied onto a rope. Yeah, you can continue going.
Yeah, you really can. You really can. Rob, thoughts? Final thoughts?
No.
Let's talk about salmon. Only 2 more months, 3 more months.
We're getting really close to being go time. You know, so you blink twice and it's going to be. I mean, I'm already looking for the warmer weather myself, and
I am too.
And get scratching that itch again. So, Phil, always a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining us, talking about some perch, which doesn't get enough. Well, it kind of gets enough attention, but I don't think it gets enough kind of conversations around kind of like the fishery aspect of it all, and some of the things that we touched on for today. And if you guys have any questions about perch fishing or thoughts on today's episode, let us know down below. Appreciate you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we will see you guys on the next episode.